All right, I think we're good to go.
All right, take it away, Shasta.
All right, am I starting this?
Sure.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for being here. This is a presentation to discuss the Pala-Rincon-San Pasqual Joint Energy, Climate, and Sustainable Communities Planning Project, which was funded by the Strategic Growth Council. And I am Shasta Gon. I am the Environmental Director and Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Pala Band of Mission Indians in Payam-Kawachum territory. And Pala is Payam-Kawachum and Kupangawachum people in the county of San Diego, very near the Riverside County border. And this presentation today is to talk about this project and what we have achieved through it and through our partnership with Rincon and San Pasqual through the Strategic Growth Council's Challenge Grant Fund for tribes. And we are very grateful to them for funding this project and for giving us the opportunity for the 3 tribes and some of the other folks associated with Rincon and San Pasqual can introduce themselves, but we are very closely we're in close proximity to one another. And so that's why it made sense for us to do this project together so that we could leverage each community's individual projects and create something that was, to use the cliche, greater than the sum of its parts. So I want to go ahead and let the other folks introduce themselves. And I believe John Flores is here. John?
Hi, everyone. Yes, I am here. Thank you, Shasta. My name is John Flores. I am the Environmental Director for the San Pasqual Band of Indians. I am also the Water Manager, so and also the TIPO. I do a lot of things here at San Pasqual, but they all complement each other in the world of energy and environmental and preservation. It's been a pleasure working with Josh and Shasta and Rincon on this. San Pasqual got a very good white paper that I think will be discussed a little later on for San Pasqual about where we were when we started on this road of energy and where we're currently at now to help guide the tribe. So yeah, I've been with the tribe for about 11 years now. I was honored at the last Environmental Tribal EPA conference with the Connor Biasero Award that Shasta and her team hosted from Paula. So great job on that, Shasta. And I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, John. And I don't see Vice Chairwoman Tishmal Turner in the attendee list. I do see Jean Benval, who's the environmental assistant there. She probably doesn't want to have to step in on Chairwoman Turner's or Vice Chairwoman Turner's behalf. So, Josh, is there anybody else you see here who can speak for Rincon?
I think we'll just monitor for when hopefully the Vice Chair joins, or perhaps the Attorney General, who we've been working closely with on these efforts, or even Camille, the Environmental Director. And yeah, I guess I can start kind of on our side. Josh Simmons with Prosper Sustainably, who was the lead consulting group on this project, working with the 3 tribes and continues to work with all 3 tribes on an ongoing basis on a variety of planning and implementation projects. We are also the lead on the California Tribal Gap Analysis Project, also funded by Strategic Growth Council. And I think a lot of synergy, a lot of worlds colliding here. Some really, really exciting stuff, I think, on more of the collaborative front that we'll talk more about throughout this webinar today. And I'll turn it over to Angie. Angie, you want to introduce yourself? Are you prepared to introduce yourself? Michael?
Sure. I'm going to turn my video on here quickly. My name is Michael Burr. I'm with Microgrid Institute, but more importantly with the Prosper Sustainably team, supporting this project and a lot of other projects for tribes in Southern California. That's, I think, all I need to say. I've supported this entire project all the way along the way. Glad to be here. I'm going to shut off my video. I've been dealing with some bandwidth issues and also power outages. So if you lose me, I lost power and lost my internet. So I will call back in if that happens.
Great, thanks, Michael. So I'd like to give the Strategic Growth Council, Coral, an opportunity to, and those that we worked with, also, CEC, to the extent, Katrina, you also want to introduce yourself. They're kind of key people we worked with on these initiatives. So Coral, is that okay? Can we turn it over to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep it brief, and I think my colleagues Ina and Liz, I'm not sure if they're able to join, but I'll just say for our side on SGC, this program has been really wonderful for us to work on. I think that we've developed some really great partnerships with the grantees, and then also the partnership with the Energy Commission and learning from them in this space has been really fruitful. So excited about the opportunity to learn more about the outcomes of this grant and ways that we as the state might be able to connect folks to resources for the next steps in this process and be able to kind of continue that partnership. So I will turn it over to Katrina or Hillary. I also saw either of you want to talk.
I guess I hadn't queued up the CEC to kind of talk on this, but I do believe we have Katrina, CEC's tribal liaison, on here. I think I saw her, and very grateful for CEC support on this project and all their work they're trying to do with tribes. So both groups.
Josh.
Yep. Hi, Katrina.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
So you said no on that one?
Yes.
Okay. Having troubles with my mic, but yeah, thank you, everyone. Really, these grant funding opportunities came out of Tom Gates and his work as tribal liaison prior to me coming on board, and I'm happy to be here as the new CEC tribal liaison to be towards the tail end of these projects and to really see the results. And I'm excited to hear what everyone's been up to, and looking forward to the rest of the call.
Okay, so I'm gonna dive in. We have 75 people on, so asking that everybody please share their name, tribe, or organization in the chat so we all can see who's joining us here today. And then if you can type in questions, we're gonna have about 10 minutes at the end for questions and discussion. Type those in, and if you want to talk, you can raise your hand at the end of the discussion. Then we'll have an opportunity to talk a bit about what we're working on. So just to be clear too, we'll be talking about Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association. So if you see DCA, then that is what that stands for. And that's a consortium of 25 federally recognized tribes located in Southern California that all Pala-Rincon and San Pasqual are part of, and with several other tribes. So, overall, the Pala-Rincon-San Pasqual Joint Energy, Climate, Sustainable Communities Planning Project, that's a mouthful, was meant to integrate, assess, and advance the sustainability planning and implementation efforts of each tribe, both individually and together. So looking at each tribe's plans and activities within this broad realm, trying to have them all in one place, assess them for potential gaps, and just really advancing the planning implementation activities related to those, both individually and collectively. I think for me personally, the kind of collectively aspect was particularly exciting, and we'll talk quite a bit about that here. We also sought to all three tribes and us working with them sought to produce tools, templates, and resources for all California tribes to really focus on advancing the same areas for their own respective communities. So before we kind of get into the project details, I think John was already kind of touching upon this before, but for Shasta, for Pala, John for San Pasqual, and then if the vice chair, Rincon's vice chair, joins, or perhaps I don't know if the attorney general will be able to speak to it who just joined. Anyways,
I was just saying she just joined. Denise did.
Okay. Well, Shasta, you want to just kind of share kind of high level overall, in terms of what this project meant for Pala?
Sure. So I'll just start briefly with a little bit of the genesis of the project and why we wanted to do this as a joint initiative. And it didn't make a whole lot of sense for these tribal communities that are so close together and confront a lot of the same issues to be addressing them individually. So it makes more sense for us to look at our goals that might be shared in common as far as sustainable energy is concerned, as far as climate change and sustainability overall is concerned, and even in terms of things like emergency preparedness and planning, because if there's a fire near here, that's a fire that affects all three of these communities as well as many others. So it made a lot of sense for us to work on these initiatives together to see where there could be overlaps and efficiencies in our approach. So for Pala, we have so many different things going on as far as our energy and our climate and various other sustainability initiatives that we are developing, not just for Pala, but in ways that we hope are going to be beneficial to neighboring tribal communities and even tribes throughout the United States. So partnering with Rincon and San Pasqual on intertribal collaboration provides us with a model to be able to try to replicate this elsewhere. And again, it's about resource sharing. It's a totally overused phrase, but we're all kind of reinventing the wheel, and there's no reason why we all can't basically share our wheels and all get on the same bus, because we're kind of going in the same direction as far as some of these commitments are concerned. And of course, there's going to be individual differences for the different communities based on where they are and what their needs are, the sizes of their land base and how many citizens are living there. But there's a lot of overlap. So within the Venn diagram of tribal needs and tribal commitments, that space in the middle where we all come together is what we were wanting to see happen with this project. And I think we've gone a long way towards doing that. And I know there's still a lot more to do, but I'm pleased with the efforts we've made so far. And I would love to see some more of our neighboring tribes that come into the fold, because again, we're all sharing the same space and we all have the same needs. So this is just the start of that.
Thank you, Shasta. John, you want to touch upon the importance of this project for San Pasqual?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I think Shasta did a good rundown of the whole, collaborative effort on this. For San Pasqual specifically, I guess we wanted to use it. We worked on a white paper for the tribe as part of this project with Michael Burr. Was really instrumental in helping it together. And, like I said, I've been with the tribe for 11 years now. And through those 11 years, we started on this path to renewable energy, sustainability, and overall decarbonization on the reservation. And when we started on that project, there was absolutely no renewable energy whatsoever on this reservation, whether that was individual residential PV or larger type projects. And over that 10 years, I'm happy to say we've done a number of renewable energy decarbonization efforts, ranging from smaller things up to, larger projects, to a microgrid that we just recently built and commissioned. So one of the things though was we had all these projects, but there was no paper, no document that kind of put it all together of when it was built, who funded it, why we did the project, what it hoped to accomplish. And now we have this great, document that we're able to share with our business committee, our tribal membership, and of course, other agencies, for going after other grant funding. Like I said, because we recently built a microgrid. We're getting into EV chargers now. We've done lots of individual residential solar. We're getting into battery storage, do the SCHIP program. And because also I sit in water, there's this energy water nexus called Watergy that's emerging amongst tribes. A lot of California energy is spent to move water from one place to the next for our communities. And, we're starting to bridge that gap between water and energy for the tribe and tribal government. So we have a great paper that, my staff and the business committee are really happy with and are going to help use that as a roadmap going forward for the next 10 years of the tribe.
Thanks, Sean. And I don't know if Vice Chair Turner was able to join. I know the Attorney General for Rincon is on. Denise, you weren't quite as involved in some of the conversations with this project in particular regarding kind of some of the SCTCA efforts, but so I don't know if you want to speak to anything there. We could I guess let me know what if you'd like to say some words.
Yeah, I did get a text from Tishmal. She's having trouble getting on. So instead of waiting or delaying the what I can pick up, I got on a little late, but Rincon started down the path of renewable energy in 2008, building a 1 megawatt solar array adjacent to the casino that offset the chiller plant for the HVAC system there. And what happened really was, if you just go forward, I mean, when we built buildings and did improvements to the casino, we went forward with a green energy plan for the development, for the facility, in terms of, trying to get our carbon footprint down. We have several plugins and have for years and years now, electric vehicles, and did a lot of modifications to the casino when we did the expansion that were very carbon footprint conscious. And then in 2018, because of the wildfire risk in this basin, San Luis Rey Basin, we had a couple of public power or public safety power shutoffs, to the point that, our casino was completely evacuated for multiple days on multiple occasions, patrons trapped in elevators. I mean, it just goes on and on. And that's when we really got serious, and luckily met Josh at at UC San Diego, big, huge green energy day there, and started down the path of trying to get more energy independence. And doing this multi-tribal plan is an outgrowth of that just makes a lot of sense, because, we keep project by project trying to make dents in our needs, but we don't have anywhere near 14 megawatts, which is what it would take to run the casino. And we're not going to get close, but having a plan, and similarly situated, like Shasta said, with the other tribes in the basin, who are our partners in many, many other respects, just makes a lot of sense to Rincon.
So much, Denise, Shasta, John. It's great working with all of you on an ongoing basis on these really exciting projects, and we're really working on cool and innovative stuff, and it's why I do what I do. I think why we all do what we do. So we're going to kind of share more of the details of the project scope of work. Focusing first on the work with the individual tribes, and then pivoting to the work. So with each tribe, as I mentioned, it was initially kind of identifying and combining a variety of planning documents and reports and studies that were out there, and putting them all in a single place. And I think many of you probably can understand and relate to kind of this plan fog of all these activities, all these supposed commitments that are just kind of sitting out there, sitting on a shelf somewhere, or in the deep recesses of your online server. Nobody's really looking at and kind of keeping track of that, maybe committed to over and over again, or maybe conflicting. So that was part of the initial efforts, was just to kind of put those all in a single space, particularly focused on energy, climate, sustainable communities, activities, evaluate those for kind of very obvious gaps. And then, I just really kind of see if we could pave the way forward for implementing some of those initiatives. And I think, we tried to be very kind of flexible and opportunistic with this project too, and really adapting this process and where we went to meet each tribe's needs. And so with Rincon, it really, there was just an ongoing huge emphasis on the microgrid projects. And again, in talking with the vice chair, like really an emphasis on kind of focusing time and effort on the collaborative efforts. And, Shasta, you have 10,000 different things you've committed to out there. So, we're trying to kind of help identify, and certainly making a lot of progress in implementing a lot of those activities. But, just having those all in one place and having a dashboard is helpful. John, kind of same thing, you have a lot of projects, you're making a lot of headway in a lot of things. And I think, in your case, it was just a matter of understanding and being able to see that and share that and show that. So ultimately, at the end of the day, what ended up being most useful for San Pasqual was this white paper that really kind of took that information and put it in a working document that can continue to be used to communicate with leadership and the community and other potential partners about where San Pasqual is going and how to hopefully stimulate support for that. So I'm going to pull up real quick. And then part of this was kind of an assessment of the joint opportunities and planning activities. And this right here is part of the intertribal information sharing. There's been other webinars on this as well, and some of the resources we've made available. But just as an example of the process itself, I'm going to pull up Paula's initial assessment framework, a very detailed spreadsheet that was prepared for this project that really, I went through here over 40 documents and it cataloged a series of activities. I think this is filtered right now. So, over 400 different activities to kind of map those out to just ensure that there's a place. And ultimately, this is now a tool that as new plans are developed, those actions, those strategies, objectives can be put into a single place. And, with the spreadsheet, it can more easily be filtered and sorted, and we hope will be an ongoing a tool of value for each tribe. So in terms of actually implementing and utilizing these things, they weren't really kind of finalized until toward the end of the project. So that value itself is kind of still in the works, but ultimately that information is now there and accessible. So, from that, a report was developed for each tribe that summarized those findings and kind of did a high level of those gaps. So I'll also pull up Paula's needs assessment and plan. Actually, no, I'll pull up San Pasqual's because that has the white paper attached. So, pretty, somewhat lengthy, detailed report, starting with the executive summary and assessment and analysis of the gaps, the planning outcomes with conclusions and next steps, strive to take this and move forward with it. And in particular, Appendix C is that white paper, the San Energy and Sustainability Activities Report that is now of immediate use to the tribe. And so one thing that's going to be made available is going to be that there'll be an assessment template that will be shared that other tribes can also use to, as a starting point, they can enter the same information. So I believe that'll be shared on various websites, including by the Strategic Growth Council. So I think, for me personally, the most exciting part of this project was in particular the joint planning activities, which was really a catalyst for some, I think, very major initiatives. So I have, I think 4 of them listed here. 3 of them are the most significant. First of all was 2 different under the US EDA Build Back Better Regional Challenge, a phase 1 grant, planning grant application, which had to consider the planning activities, the mutual goals, benefits for all these tribes in these areas, as well as for all 25 SCTCA tribes. That was successfully awarded. Paula, in partnership with SCTCA, secured $500,000, which mostly went toward developing an implementation grant application, phase 2 implementation grant application. So these slides will be shared as well. There's a link here that goes to the project on EDA's website that shares more information about the project itself. And I'll go into some more of the details in just a moment. Two other major grant applications. First, the Tribal Energy Innovation Accelerator was proposed to the National Science Foundation under the Regional Innovation Engines program for a Type 1 grant application. This is more of an economic development focused grant opportunity for the SCTCA tribes to collaborate in pursuing energy innovations in conjunction with development, workforce development, and other related activities to hopefully, I think in this space, there's a lot of emphasis on addressing climate change impacts, resilience, adaptation, so on and so forth. And there's a lot of emphasis on tribes and other disadvantaged communities about, helping them deal with these types of impacts. Well, I think kind of the approach and the philosophy here is, well, that's all well and good, and certainly needs to be a continued focus. But, inherent in some of that disadvantage for a lot of these communities is economic revenue, economic development. So how can we pair these activities with economic development activities that hopefully are kind of raising the floor for each of these communities, so that with those resources, they're better able to adapt to climate change and be more resilient in the face of grid outages and other things that they're getting impacted on, or things like COVID on a very regular basis. So then the third kind of major thing that was catalyzed by this particular project was the Southern California Tribal Regional Climate Collaborative, which was proposed for the Strategic Growth Council's Regional Climate Collaborative Round 1 grant program. And again, I'll get into some more details on this, but this is, in this case, more focused on helping tribes in technical resources, capacity building, focusing on tribes specific climate change needs, while also considering the economic development opportunities associated with those as well. And then finally, there's a variety of initiatives that I've been pursuing along the way, but one more tangible one is the Southern Border Regional Community Economic Resilience application that was submitted with SCTCA's partnership under SURF, the Community Economic Resilience Fund Regional Planning Grant application. We're still waiting to hear back on that for the Southern Border region, which includes San Diego and other counties. So the Southern California Tribal Accelerated Economy, which I decided to make an acronym into SCTACE, and we don't have to continue to use that, particularly because the phase 2 grant wasn't actually funded, so we can use more succinct acronyms. The original concept included a facility to house this type of initiative, really kind of a broader initiative serving all SCTCA and potentially all tribes throughout the state in these areas, and helping build capacity, providing technical assistance. I think both Shasta and Denise mentioned tribes are working on these types of efforts. They're similarly affected by these things and inventing the wheel over and over again. So, we've been doing a lot of work with a lot of these tribes on these efforts, but there's others that are doing this work as well. We don't want tribes to have to continuously start from scratch, not knowing who's done what, not knowing what the success has been. So, hopefully making that information and resources available, while also hopefully having an organization dedicated to each tribe in doing technical assistance, in supporting and grant writing, in being their advocate as an owner's rep type role, supporting procurement, supporting project management, so that then when they're working with other providers, developers, consultants, they have somebody advocating on their behalf as well. So, ultimately, that part of the goal is still to have a facility that this organization housed out of. Part of this portfolio included a series of solar panel plants using some advanced solar panel technology, of clean energy facilities, both at a community scale and utility scale, primarily solar plus storage, and mostly on the community scale grids. Those included one initiative or one project proposed was a wireless electric vehicle charging road, which was pretty exciting. It is quite a bit ahead of its time. We investigated and initially proposed an intertransactive energy micromarket, and this is like the Uber of buying and selling, among individual users, and then finally some workforce development program on developing tribal clean energy workforce capacity to implement these projects and hopefully grow businesses out of. Ultimately, we had to down select to 5 projects, which ended up being a series of 3 solar panel manufacturing facilities, the workforce development program, and solar plus storage, larger solar plus storage export facility at Campo. So it ended up being a $75 million application that included, factories that were going to be able to generate overnight lots of panels per year. Going to generate, I believe, I think it's hiding here. I think there's about 260 ongoing manufacturing jobs and other jobs. Yeah, it was also part of this initiative was to have some of the net revenues go back to this foundational organization that's going to serve tribes in this space to support its ongoing sustainability. So it's not entirely dependent upon going out and pursuing and securing grants. Ultimately, this application wasn't successful, I think primarily due to the solar panel technology not quite being far enough along in terms of market validation. But I think this opportunity served as a major catalyst for SCTCA tribes in particular. There have been some various efforts by SCTCA on pursuing clean energy and energy related projects. But this was really kind of the first really major one that a lot of tribes initially rallied behind and were very interested. We ended up analyzing, I believe, probably over 15 projects, well over a dozen projects for over 15 of the SCTCA tribes before down selecting. So we had, at least some analysis on a variety of projects. That ended up being a catalyst for something much larger. I mean, the ultimate vision was that this was going to be a larger program that was not going to be reactive in response to these grant funding opportunities, because that's what often is. A funding opportunity comes out, everybody rushes to come up with projects, analyze them, get them to get funded for them. And ultimately, that means that the communities, the tribes that have the resource, have the funding, whatever it is that they need to in order to participate, are able to participate. And those tribes that don't, that may have may potentially higher need and potentially higher quality projects, even participate because they just can't at a particular time. So, this is going to be more proactive. The goal is to be more proactive and comprehensive. So those tribes that are doing great work continue to do great work and build upon that. And tribes that could use some support and kind of catching up are able to as well. So the model is having a robust set of programs that's informed by assessments with each tribe, identifying their clean energy, climate change, economic development, and related needs, to understand, have a portfolio of potential projects with some level of analysis ready to go, so that when various funding opportunities come, we already know what those projects are, and those tribes already provided some level of information. So we're not being so reactive. At the same time, part of this is also developed that's dedicated to having ongoing communications with state and federal agencies, funders, other potential partners and stakeholders on these projects and programs to hopefully develop new resources, develop new programs, have these developed in a way that are better meeting tribes' needs and opportunities. The tribes themselves are collective commenting on rulemaking proceedings that are released by the CPUC on things like SGIP and the microgrid proceedings. I think there's a lot of efforts out there to serve tribes' needs and tribes. I think each of the 3 tribes we worked with can attest to this. Fred so thin dozen hats that he wears, and have time to participate in all these proceedings that are relevant to him. So to have an organization dedicated to monitoring these things and identifying fundings and making it easy for tribes to participate and advocate on their behalf is part of the ultimate goal of a larger initiative. So I mentioned the Tribal Innovation Accelerator. Some of the activities here. This is really kind of get this off the ground. Somewhat of a bit of a business planning on how this can be rolled out, but there's a lot of innovation that's going on in the clean energy space right now. A lot of innovation that's needed. There's a lot of funding out there, particularly to really advance these technologies, advance local manufacturing, advance local jobs. So that we're not dependent upon going overseas for solar panels. We have the reasons we need, like lithium, available to actually deploy more energy storage projects, identifying other potential energy storage opportunities and systems like flow batteries and flywheel energy storage systems that don't depend upon lithium. That's has some limitations. that tribes can participate in these things and identify these things, evaluating these things, and be at the forefront. So hopefully, instead of a company coming to a tribe and trying to participate and pursue, like say, a CEC EPIC grant for a demonstration project, the tribe will be in a better, more position to say, okay, that sounds good to us. We have a great project. We can do, serve our community, and we're also interested in equity partnership with you in your new emerging business. Or, tribes are partnering with universities or clean tech incubators found throughout the state, like Clean Tech San Diego, and being able to evaluate and support and partner with these companies at the early stages of growth and development, so that tribes can participate in these activities, in these investments, benefiting their communities, leading the energy industry and its innovation. And then I mentioned the Regional Climate Collaborative, and I kind of already summarized a lot of what's going on. What I mentioned is there really focused on kind of, one, identifying where are the needs, where are the priorities of each tribe in the realm of climate change, which is very broad, and then providing support for tribes and getting funding, building capacity, providing technical assistance, being engaged with funders, while also doing outreach to other collaboratives, to other tribes, to other communities throughout the state and beyond, to hopefully create an organization that's going to be a magnet for resources to address these types of needs for these 3 tribes, all 25 SCTCA tribes, and ultimately, hopefully, all tribes throughout the state. So just to kind of summarize the kind of target outcomes and benefits from these initiatives, and there's a bit of a more of an economic development spin to these, but that's been gained a lot of traction with tribes, as I mentioned, kind of raising up the floor so that tribes have the economic resources to withstand the impacts of their power going out, with the impacts of climate change. So a stable and growing, financially self-sufficient green economy. Many ongoing, a deluge of new projects, tribal projects, implementation projects, addressing energy, climate, resilience, and other needs that have been identified through these assessments, with ongoing training, resources, and support. So each tribe cannot just be dependent upon this organization, but it's also building its own internal capacity, but that it does have external grant writing, technical assistance, owners representation, other services available to it. And that there's a continuous pipeline of economic development opportunities that are generating an abundance of substantial new revenue streams for all tribes, for individual opportunities for tribes to invest on their own, and then opportunities for tribes to invest collectively as well. And so with policies, laws, and programs, including in particularly funding, being developed and up to advance these tribal goals and needs, so tribes are at the table as these opportunities are being developed. I mean, ultimately, we're hoping to see global industry leadership, that tribes are at the forefront of the clean energy and climate change industries, to beyond the extent that they already are. Certainly, there's a lot of incredible projects in these areas that tribes are already leading. There's just opportunity to really have that be almost exponentially larger, to the benefit of not just tribes, but all communities throughout California and beyond. So I have learned, but I want to, see if Shasta, John, or Denise kind of, touch upon a two before I this project and relate, the initiatives related to this project.
Yeah, I'll mention a few things. So it may seem like, a lot of what Josh just went through, how is it specifically related to these projects? And they're examples of how what we are doing by working together, that we're able to leverage that into these greater partnerships, these bigger projects that will allow us to do something that's going to be useful to not just one tribe, but to multiple tribal communities. And these are enormous projects, and they'd be hard, I think, to manage just as a single tribe versus as bringing this together as a team. And that means not just Pala-Rincon and San Pasqual, but also the member tribes of SCTCA. So it starts almost as a pilot of the three of us working together. And then this shows with these different applications what we can do to create these initiatives that are going to overlap a whole bunch of different tribal jurisdictions, but be of benefit to all of them. The lesson learned for me is that I take on too many things. And so it would be much easier to be able to focus these in on just a couple of main project areas and create more capacity so that we can bring more people on to do some of this work. Because, you know, I'm one person with a reasonably sized staff, but not every tribe has that capacity. So if we're able to provide examples of how this can be done with a consortium of tribes like SCTCA, or, you know, partnerships of tribes in other configurations, then we can, again, do more together than any of us would be able to do alone. So even though we weren't successful in the second phase of the EDA grant, we learned a ton of lessons from that. And a lot of that translates from the work that we've done for this particular project with the 3 tribes.
John and Denise, anything you'd like to add?
I guess I'll go. Yeah, I thought it was.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I thought it was a good project. What was surprising to me, you know, doing this project with Josh and all the stuff we've done in the realm of renewable energy, decarbonization. It was kind of surprising to see everything we had done and accomplished once it was on paper. You know, it was like we always knew it was out there and what we had done, but it was really nice to see it, you know, put down in paper, but then also to see where we want to go the next decade and you know how we might be able to get there and who we might be able to partner with on tribal side or federal or state or nonprofit. You know, I see Great Alternatives is on here. That's one of our partners that we've worked on it with the past. So it was really something because we get so busy, especially myself. I get so busy like Shasta and like many of you on so many projects that I don't often take the time to sit down with my staff and reflect everything we've done by putting it on paper and then sharing that with leadership and with the community. So I think that was pretty beneficial for us and leadership to see what we've done and get excited about where we're going to go in the future. You know, nothing gives you more motivation than seeing all the successes behind you to continue on towards, you know, those future projects and to continue, like Shasta, to say yes to more things to do. So it was definitely a worthwhile project.
Was that you, Vice Chair Turner?
Yes, Josh, can you hear me? I'm sorry,
Yes.
it's like I have a mini hurricane happening at my house.
I have 2 young children, so that's constantly happening around here. Go ahead.
No, it's just seriously the weather here. So I have an unstable internet, but I am on, you know, I think that the realization of our capacity at Rincon, because, you know, even though we have an environmental department, but we don't have an energy component, trying to really see where we take on a project like this and where does it fit. You know, like we've got Cindy from General Services, and trying to, you know, and Josh, you've been involved with trying to just educate council and our administration about how to take on these types of projects has been a really learning gap, and we've done it also working with our you know, SDG&E and you know their communication to tell us what they're doing. So I think those are like 2 big learning things that I can take away from this.
Thanks, Vice Chair. So, I mean, for me, you know, one lesson learned is, well, at least the lesson right now is the floodgates are open. There are so many opportunities out there to do all sorts of exciting projects, but it's extremely overwhelming to keep track of this, you know. And, you know, in addition to all the things that have already, you know, each tribe's is already committed to, and then, a lot is going on. So everybody's spread extremely thin. It's difficult to do comprehensive planning when there are so many projects with immediate need and like opportunities rising away. It's kind of a bit of a balance. It's like focusing on the planning activities comprehensively or just, individually within a given area versus pursuing some funding to actually implement the outcome of the plan itself. And that's, a bit of a balance at all times. Sometimes you got to also strike while the iron's hot, or just like while that funding is available. Like, I don't know, this seems to be an unprecedented time with these types of resources being available for these types of projects. And there's a bit of a balance there. I think it was, from my perspective, the best to approach these types of projects flexibly and opportunistically, focusing on meeting tribals' needs, both individual, but just seeing how we can build bigger resources that are going to continue to serve each tribe individually on an ongoing basis, while serving other tribes as well. And I'll just say that I really liked this particular funding opportunity. And I'm hoping that there are future iterations of it offered by Strategic Council, because there aren't many funding opportunities out there that offer this level of flexibility to kind of, the initial scope was pretty wide open. And then, Strategic Growth Council, great at being able to allow the tribes to, go in the direction they wanted with it as well. The only funding opportunity I'm really aware of that's like that flexible is probably like the EPA GAP program. Will really cover these areas. So, I'm hoping that this will be something that's, I would love to see it be an ongoing program. And then finally, like kind of just there's similar needs in many tribes in a specific region throughout the state. And I think a huge need and a need for this regional statewide assistance, and hopefully we're successful in getting some of these grants. So the next step is hopefully, I guess Rincon and San Pasqual both have some climate adaptation planning going on under some BIA grants that are related to this, and the kind of foundational information has been gathered to this project. Shasta's ongoing pursuit of funding, finding funding for implementation of the gazillions of recommended climate activity, all the plans that you have, while just focusing on just that's certainly our next step. And I think ultimately, all three tribes are focused on deploying a portfolio of solar storage and microgrid projects that we're working with them on. And I think jointly, hopefully some of those grants that are listed up there will be secured, and that tribes, in providing regional support and capacity and economic development opportunities, and we've established an organization dedicated to these, and that we'll continue to pursue projects, programs, and funding and programs, including the SURF set aside for tribes, the DOE in the grants that are available that got released for another round, energy minerals development program grants. And then there's some other opportunities there are some massive opportunities out there for potentially deploying a portfolio of large tribal energy projects. And so, I'll actually be reaching out, or others may be reaching out to tribes about that opportunity as well in the near future. And if you want to know more about that, feel free to reach out to me on that. And so with that, I guess we'll open it up for questions. And
there are a few questions in chat already, Josh. You want to look at that? It looks like Karen Woodward's question is the first one.
Okay, Michael, could you read them? I'm having difficulty finding my chat.
Okay. So Karen Woodward asks, can you talk about your experience with regulations and utility companies? So that's one question. She also asks, was there an agreement between the tribes? Did they create a company? I can respond to the second one right away. A company was not created for this project. The SCTCA opportunities that Josh talked about, the opportunities with SCTCA, that is the intertribal work, that has contemplated development of a standalone organization, whether that would be, well, not really standalone, but within SCTCA or parallel to it is, for future determination. But there's that in the future. But no, a company wasn't formed. There wasn't really an agreement between the tribes for the project, other than the agreement with Strategic Growth Council to collaborate on the project, as far as I know. Josh, you may want to follow up on that. But the first question is, can you talk about your experience with regulations and utility companies? Not sure quite how to respond to that.
Yeah, I'll circle back to the first question but yes, there were sub-award agreements and it had sub-award agreements for the grant itself. With SCTCA, and again, these are just kind of initial things being contemplated, are, not a nonprofit focused on this, but also a for-profit business collaborative joint one tribes to in particular on the NSF grant opportunity, but nothing has been formed or advanced beyond that. Hopefully that grant's secured so we can actually opportunity. Denise, I certainly have experiences in working with utilities on these types of projects. Do you want to share anything in response to that? And Michael, if you could reread the first part.
Yeah, it was just, can you talk to your experience with regulations and utility companies?
Well, I mean, we only have one game in town in San Diego County, right? So it's SDG&E, and we have a really good working relationship with SDG&E. And we've actually had, or in my experience working in San Diego County in other capacities, had a lot of success getting the CPUC to understand that state regulatory law does not apply in Indian country in San Diego County. So even though they're a primary regulator of our utility company here in this county, when state regulatory law just doesn't apply in Indian country. So when you're permitting or triggering projects that trigger a CEQA review, that kind of stops at the border of the reservation. And so far, so good. They've respected tribal sovereignty and the limitation of being within an Indian jurisdiction. That's, I hope, answer to the question.
Shasta and John, anything to add?
Shasta, you want to go first, or you want
Nope.
Shasta declines.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's three major investor-owned utilities in California that basically run the state's grid, right? PG&E, SoCal Edison, and SDG&E. We're in SDG&E territory, and our relationship in the beginning was a bit rockier than it's better now. It kind of ebbs and flows like the ocean tides here. It improved quite a bit once SDG&E finally hired a tribal liaison. Before that, they were treating a lot of us tribal governments like we were just a regular old customer, when in fact we are not, right? We are, sovereign nations that have priorities that are above, John and Jane Smith down the road from us, right? So, and oftentimes, not only are we sovereign, but for those of us that have large gaming enterprises, we're oftentimes the largest energy consumer out here in these rural territories. So we have needs on the smaller residential level, getting people power, getting solar on homes, permission to operate, to turn on, and what that looked like, all the way up to larger microgrids, solar projects to try to offset our carbon footprint for our casinos. It's gotten better. It's definitely not perfect. It's one of those things that you always work on. It's a relationship, so it's always evolving. But I definitely think it has gotten better. It does take takes longer than it should, in my opinion, to get permission to operate on certain projects where it feels like SDG&E's kind of slow rolling us to, like, on our microgrid. It took a long time to get PTO, and I know some of that was due to the pandemic and people working from home and trying to communicate. SDG&E is kind of siloed in like little fiefdoms, so it's nice to have a tribal liaison to kind of that can penetrate those silos and talk to the different fiefdoms of SDG&E and see where some of our applications for projects are. Yeah, it's been the relationships that evolved and constantly evolving, and has improved in my opinion, but we still have a little ways to get there.
And I'll add, not specifically about utilities, but just there was an earlier question about the tools that we've developed. You know, the point of this webinar was to share what we've been able to accomplish with this particular funding from Strategic Growth Council. You know, and the bigger projects that Josh has talked about were separate funding initiatives, but that came out as a consequence of us discovering how much synergy there was with tribes working together rather than each of us trying to pursue things separately. But the question earlier was, how can we access these tools for California tribes? And Josh, you had said that the templates and things will be probably available on the Strategic Growth Council's website, and we may be able to put those in other places, but I'm hoping that we can reach out to all who have participated today and give them access or information about where to find those things. But the other thing, and it gets to Rob Roy's couple of questions at the bottom about whether the tribes are looking to develop utilities or take advantage of their WAPA allocations, and just where are the resources. We did it this way because the resources are spread more equitably and efficiently when we're all working together. And, you know, Rob knows, just as many tribal environmental directors know, that when you're small and you don't have money, you can't get money. You need money to get money. But if we partner together, it can help us with those resources. And that's what we were trying to do here, is give a little bit of a leg up to other tribes to be able to get some of those financial resources, or to see that the model works. That if you can find a partner that has a few more resources like Pala or Rincon or San Pasqual and partner with them, it can lift all of us up so that La Jolla or Mesa Grande or Los Coyotes or Manzanita or, La Posta can also do some of these things. And then we can do that through SDTCA as well. So that's really what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to demonstrate here. Not so much the SCTAC project, but that this starting place that Strategic Growth Council made possible is what helped us get to that point of doing these bigger projects. As long as we're all still trying to do it separately, the littler, less resourced communities and tribes are going to have a harder time. So we're trying to make that case for working together.
And then I think this will be the last one. Rob's other question regarding are tribes involved looking to develop their own utilities? I think that's always an option for every tribe. We've not gone that far. I think, tribes can develop their own utilities. It's possible. Not, the utility that owns assets, the utility authority that just kind of oversees energy related things. There's also potentially an intertribal utility authority that could come out of all this. I think nothing is kind of progressed that far with any of these projects yet. I think each of these tribes individually have looked into that to a certain degree. At the same time, I'm not as familiar with WAPA in terms of as an opportunity right now specifically. I think that's among the things in the portfolio of being able to procure energy, including direct access, that are available to tribes.
Josh.
Yep.
I just have one thing to add to that, to his second question there, which is that, Rincon started with a DEMD grant to do a feasibility study for a tribal utility. And that was not hard to get. And the company that did the feasibility study wrote the grant for Rincon. And it took about a year to get that. And it took about a year to do the feasibility study. So, Rob, if you want to contact me or the vice chair, we can give you the contact information for that company. They're out, I believe, of the Great Lakes area.
And Rob, that is also, sorry, go ahead, Shasta.
I was just going to wrap us up because we're at 2:01 and we're starting to lose people to their 2:00 meetings.
Sure. Yep. Go ahead.
So I want to thank everybody for being here. It was a short amount of time to go over a lot of information, but again, appreciation to SGC and those from tribes that are here. Thank you for listening. And also the folks who are agency personnel or agency representatives, listen and learn from our experience. And maybe there can be some better ways for you to leverage your own funding for tribes. So thank you again, everybody, and stay dry.